Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a young princess named Snow White. She was as beautiful as a winter's day, with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. Her stepmother, the queen, was also a woman of great beauty, but her heart was filled with vanity and jealousy. Every day, she would stand before her magic mirror and ask, "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" And every day, the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest one of all." This pleased the queen, for she knew the mirror never lied. But as Snow White grew, her beauty blossomed, surpassing even the queen's. One day, the queen asked her mirror the same question, but this time the answer was different. The mirror said, "My queen, you are fair, it is true. But Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you." The queen was consumed by a furious rage. Her jealousy was so great that she could no longer bear the sight of Snow White. She summoned her loyal huntsman and gave him a terrible command. "Take the princess deep into the forest," she ordered, "and bring me back her heart as proof that she is gone forever." The huntsman, though loyal, had a kind heart. He led Snow White into the woods, but when he looked into her innocent eyes, he couldn't bring himself to do the evil deed. "Run," he whispered urgently. "Run away and never come back." To deceive the queen, he killed a young boar and took its heart back to the castle. The queen, believing her rival was vanquished, was overjoyed. Meanwhile, Snow White ran through the dark, frightening forest. The trees seemed to reach out with gnarled branches, and the sounds of the night terrified her. She ran until her legs could carry her no more, and finally, as dawn broke, she stumbled upon a small clearing. In the middle of the clearing stood a tiny, charming cottage. It was so small, it looked as if it were built for children. Cautiously, she knocked on the door, but there was no answer. The door creaked open, and exhausted, she stepped inside. The cottage was a bit of a mess, but it was cozy. She saw 7 tiny beds, 7 little chairs, and a table set for 7. Everything was miniature. Snow White, being kind and tidy, decided to clean up the place to thank whoever lived there. She swept the floor, dusted the furniture, and washed the tiny dishes. After her hard work, she felt so tired that she lay down across the 7 little beds and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Later that day, the owners of the cottage returned. They were the 7 dwarfs, who worked all day in the nearby mines, digging for gold and jewels. Their names were Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Bashful, Sneezy, and Dobie. When they saw their home, they were astonished. "Our cottage is clean," exclaimed Happy. "Someone's been eating from my plate," grumbled Grumpy. They searched the house and found Snow White sleeping peacefully on their beds. At first, they were startled, but they were soon captivated by her beauty and gentle nature. When Snow White woke up, she was frightened to see 7 little men staring at her. But they were friendly, and she quickly told them a sad story. The dwarfs felt sorry for her and offered her a safe place to stay. "You can live with us," said Doc, "if you'll keep house for us, cook, make the beds, wash and sew. We'll protect you." Snow White happily agreed. From then on, she lived with the 7 dwarfs, keeping their home bright and cheerful while they worked in the mines, back at the castle. The evil queen was confident she was once again the fairest in the land. She approached her magic mirror and asked, "Magic mirror on the wall, who now is the fairest one of all?" To her horror, the mirror replied, "Over the 7 jeweled hills, beyond the 7th fall, In the cottage of the 7 dwarfs, Snow White is fairest of all. The queen shrieked with fury. She had been tricked. She realized the huntsman had betrayed her and that Snow White was still alive. Determined to get rid of Snow White herself, the queen used her dark magic to disguise herself as an old peddler woman. She crafted a poisoned apple. An apple so beautiful and red on one side that anyone would want to bite, but the other side was pale green and safe. The red half was filled with a powerful sleeping potion, a sleep so deep it resembled death. She travelled to the dwarf's cottage, knowing they would be away at work. Snow White, who had been warned by the dwarfs not to talk to strangers, was hesitant at first. But the old woman seemed so harmless, offering her a shiny, delicious-looking apple. Just one bite, the disguised queen coaxed, to taste its juicy sweetness. To prove it was safe, the queen took a bite from the green side of the apple. Reassured, Snow White took the apple and bit into the poisoned red side. Instantly, the poison took effect, and she fell to the floor in a death-like slumber. The queen cackled triumphantly. "Now I am the fairest of all," she shrieked and fled back to her castle. When the 7 dwarfs returned home that evening, they found Snow White lying motionless on the floor. They were heartbroken. They tried everything to wake her, but nothing worked, believing she was gone. They couldn't bear to bury her in the cold, dark ground. Instead, they built a beautiful coffin of glass and gold, so they could still look upon her lovely face. They placed the coffin in a clearing in the forest and took turns watching over it, mourning their beloved friend. Time passed, and Snow White lay in her glass coffin, her beauty untouched by time. One day, a prince from a neighboring kingdom was riding through the forest. He came upon the clearing and saw the beautiful maiden in the glass coffin. He was immediately enchanted by her serene beauty. He approached the grieving dwarfs and begged them to let him take the coffin with him, promising to cherish and protect her always. The dwarfs, seeing his sincere love and sorrow, agreed. As the prince's servants lifted the glass coffin to carry it away, one of them stumbled on a tree root. The jolt dislodged the piece of poisoned apple from Snow White's throat. Her eyes fluttered open, and she sat up, looking round in confusion. She was alive. The dwarfs cheered with joy, and the prince was overcome with happiness. He asked Snow White to be his bride, and she, seeing the goodness in his heart, joyfully accepted. The evil queen, upon learning from her mirror that the new princess was the fairest, was so consumed by her own rage and vanity that her wicked heart gave out. Snow White and the prince were married and lived happily ever after, ruling their kingdom with kindness and grace. And the 7 dwarfs, their dearest friends, visited them often at the castle, living out their days in peace and happiness. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more classic fairy tales. See you next time.